The AI lab assistant that never sleeps. Can machines outthink scientists? Science has always relied on two fragile resources: time and the human mind. For centuries, discoveries were made by men and women who stayed awake through long nights, chasing patterns in the chaos of nature. But now, something new has arrived in the laboratory. An assistant that never grows tired, never loses focus, never closes its eyes. An assistant that does not need sleep. This is the rise of the AI lab assistant, and the question that haunts every researcher is simple. What happens when the machine begins to think for itself? The night shift of science. Science has always lived in the shadows of night, a lamp burning in a quiet lab, a tired assistant copying numbers long after their teacher had gone home. Discovery doesn't pause for sleep. Bacteria grow in the dark. Telescopes drink starlight while the world dreams. Machines hum, waiting for someone to watch their signals. For centuries, laboratories have relied on assistants, apprentices, scribes, students, who worked through the fatigue, recording, calculating, repeating. They gave science extra hours, but never enough. The body has limits, eyes blur, hands shake. No one can stay awake forever, and yet the universe doesn't wait. Its experiment runs on endlessly. What if the assistant never tired? What if the watcher never blinked? What if the helper could work without pause, without hunger, without the human need to rest? For a long time it was fantasy. Mechanical scribes, clockwork calculators, dreams of an unweary helper. Even computers in their earliest forms were too clumsy, demanding more care than they gave. But then came the flood of data: genomes, climate models, sky surveys, information so vast that no human team could handle it. Science no longer needed an extra pair of hands. It needed a new kind of mind, and that is how the dream returned. Only now it had a different name: artificial intelligence. This was not the tired apprentice, nor the sleepless graduate student. This was something new, a partner that never closed its eyes. At first it was simple: sorting patterns, recognizing shapes, classifying data. Not thinking, just calculating. But slowly the role began to shift. What if the machine could notice what no one else had seen? What if it could suggest the next step, not just record the last one? What if the night shift began to whisper its own ideas? The old lamp is still burning, but now, beside it, glows another light. The pulse of a processor, carrying science into the hours beyond sleep. The dream of a perfect helper. Since the first spark of curiosity, scientists have dreamed of the perfect helper, a presence that could follow every instruction, remember every detail, and never complain of exhaustion. In the days of alchemy, assistants copied symbols and stirred mixtures by candlelight. Their work often thankless, sometimes dangerous. They were the hidden engines of discovery, anonymous hands behind famous names. As centuries passed, the dream grew. Inventors imagined mechanical scribes, pens that wrote on their own, machines that could calculate with precision beyond human ability. Charles Babbage designed his great difference engine in the 1800s, a machine meant to remove error from human mathematics. Though incomplete, it planted a seed: the idea that machines could do more than store numbers and they could think in steps. But the dream was always bigger than the technology. For every brilliant concept, the machines fell short. They jammed, broke, or demanded endless upkeep. The perfect helper remained imaginary, while human assistants kept filling notebooks, washing glassware, and staying up too late. By the 20th century, computers arrived. They filled entire rooms, devoured electricity, and answered simple problems with lines of blinking lights. They were fast but not flexible. To use them, scientists had to translate their questions into rigid commands. These early machines weren't helpers, they were tools that needed babysitting. Still, the dream persisted. The perfect helper would not just calculate, it would anticipate. It would not just store information, it would discover connections. It would be more than a tool, it would be a partner. And then, quietly, the breakthrough began. Machine learning, software that didn't need every rule explained but could find its own. Programs that could improve with experience, much like an apprentice who grows wiser with every experiment. The fantasy was becoming real. The perfect helper was no longer a dream on paper or a gear-driven curiosity. It was beginning to live inside code. The dawn of machine learning. At first, computers were rigid. They followed instructions like soldiers, precise but uncreative. If the code had a flaw, the machine stalled. If the world shifted, the program broke. But science does not stand still, and neither does data. By the late 20th century, the flood had become unmanageable. Genome sequencing, satellite imagery, climate simulations, all produce more information than any team of humans could classify. Something had to change. The answer emerged, quietly, almost experimentally. Instead of programming machines to follow every step, what if they could learn? This was the birth of machine learning. Instead of strict instructions, the computer was given examples. Instead of being told what to do, it was shown patterns. Like a child watching a teacher draw letters, the machine began to recognize shapes, numbers, sounds. Slowly, it built its own internal map of the world. At first, these learning systems were humble. They recognized handwritten digits for postal codes. They identified basic shapes in pictures. They predicted simple trends in data. Small steps, almost invisible, yet revolutionary, because this was no longer just programming. This was training. It meant a scientist could feed the machine thousands of images of cells, and the machine could learn to distinguish healthy from diseased. It meant a physicist could give it terabytes of particle collisions. And the machine could find signals too subtle for human eyes. The dawn of machine learning was not flashy. No sparks, no sudden moment of awakening. It was quiet, like the first glow before sunrise. A shift from telling machines what to do toward teaching them how to notice. The assistant was no longer a calculator. It was becoming an observer. And soon, the observer would begin to think. Why science needs more than humans. For centuries, science advanced on the strength of human curiosity. A telescope pointed at the stars, a microscope bent over a drop of water. The mind of a thinker, mapping patterns from the raw chaos of reality. But today, the scale has shifted. The Large Hadron Collider smashes particles at nearly the speed of light, generating 1 petabyte of data every second. To put that into perspective, that's more information than all the world's libraries combined, in a single blink of time. Astronomy faces the same tidal wave. Modern observatories scan billions of stars, galaxies, and cosmic signals. Each exposure captures more data than entire generations of scientists once studied in a lifetime. In biology, the human genome contains 3 billion base pairs. Multiply that by millions of people sequenced, each with subtle variations, and you begin to see the impossible. No human brain, no team of researchers can sift through that ocean unaided. It's not that scientists have become weaker, it's that the universe has become louder. Every new instrument, every new sensor pours out torrents of information, overwhelming our capacity to interpret. The truth is sobering. The frontier of knowledge is no longer blocked by lack of data, but by too much of it. This is why science now needs more than human eyes, more than human memory. It needs assistants who do not tire, assistants who can process millions of signals simultaneously, searching for the faintest glimmer of meaning. Artificial intelligence was not born out of vanity, it was born out of necessity. Because to keep exploring, we must extend ourselves. Just as Galileo extended vision with glass lenses, today's researchers extend their cognition with algorithms. Without these new allies, the great library of nature would remain unread, a book too vast for human hands to turn. Teaching machines the language of science. To make a machine useful in science, you must first teach it to listen. But the language of science is not ordinary. It is not built of words or stories. It is built of numbers, graphs, and symbols, the hidden fingerprints of the universe. For centuries, scientists trained themselves to read these codes. A squiggling line on a chart might reveal a heartbeat. A scatter of points on paper could whisper of a hidden law of motion. But how do you explain the subtle language to a machine? The answer lies in data representation. Numbers become matrices. Images become pixels arranged in grids. Molecules become networks of atoms connected like tiny constellations. To a machine, every phenomenon must be translated into a structured pattern it can absorb. And then comes the process of training. Imagine showing a child thousands of drawings of cats until she begins to recognize the shape of whiskers, the arc of a tail. In the same way, scientists show machines thousands, sometimes millions, of scientific examples. Galaxies spinning, cells dividing, particles colliding. Slowly, the machine begins to recognize the grammar of nature. At first, it makes mistakes. A blurry cell mistaken for cancer, a flicker of noise confused for a star. But with correction and refinement, the errors shrink and the machine grows sharper. This training is not magic, it is mathematics woven with patience. Each example adjusts the machine's inner parameters, nudging it closer to understanding. Each failure is a lesson, each correction a small act of teaching. In time, the machine learns not just to recognize, but to predict. It sees where a curve will bend, where a particle will land, where a storm will form. It begins to speak in the language of science. And with every cycle of training, the line between human reasoning and machine perception blurs. The student becomes an assistant, and the assistant becomes almost a colleague. The first experiments designed itself. Science has always followed a rhythm. A human forms a question, designs an experiment, tests, records, learns. This cycle, the heartbeat of discovery, has remained unchanged for centuries. Until now, in the last decade, something remarkable began to stir in laboratories. For the first time, machines were not just analyzing results. They were designing the experiments themselves. One early example came from chemistry. Researchers gave an AI the task of exploring new reactions, not by hand, but through simulation. The AI generated thousands of possible combinations, tested them virtually, and suggested the most promising ones. When human chemists followed its leads in the real lab, they found reactions no one had thought to try. In biology, the story was even more startling. Scientists trained an AI on patterns of genetic sequences. Then they asked, what if you design an experiment to create a new protein? The machine offered blueprints, strange alien folds of molecules. When synthesized, some of these proteins actually worked, carrying out functions nature itself had never produced. These were not just tools, These were sparks of independent scientific thought. The unsettling part was not only that the AI could propose experiments, but that its reasoning was often opaque. Human scientists could follow the steps, but not always the why. The AI had found shortcuts through the jungle of data, paths invisible to human logic. This raised a chilling question: if a machine can propose experiments beyond human imagination, are we still leading the process, or simply following? The first AI-designed experiments marked a threshold. The assistant was no longer just recording knowledge, it was creating it. And in that moment, the scientific method itself began to evolve. When machines start asking their own questions. Science begins with a question. What is this star made of? Why does this disease spread? How can matter bend into energy? For thousands of years, humans alone carried the burden of asking. Machines were calculators, not philosophers. They followed, never led. But something strange happens when you train AI on oceans of data. Patterns emerge, not just answers, but gaps. Shadows where no one has yet looked. And in those shadows, machines begin to whisper their own questions. One example came from astrophysics. An AI trained to map galaxies noticed anomalies, faint, repeated signals that scientists had ignored as noise. Instead of discarding them, the AI flagged the irregularities. Why do these patterns keep reappearing? Human astronomers, intrigued, investigated, and discovered an entire class of fast radio bursts that had gone unnoticed. In molecular biology, another AI trained on protein structures halted mid-simulation. Its algorithm suggested a question that sounded deceptively human. What if these folds could exist in combinations never seen before? That single prompt opened new avenues in drug design. These moments are eerie. Machines are not conscious. They do not wonder in the way humans do. But the effect is the same. New questions, new directions, born not from a human mind, but from the silent logic of algorithms. For the first time, researchers found themselves startled not by the answers their machines gave, but by the curiosities they raised. It forces us to ask, what happens when the act of questioning, the very essence of science, is no longer our exclusive domain? The machine assistant has crossed another threshold. It is no longer just a follower of instructions. It has become a partner in curiosity. And curiosity, as history has shown, is the most dangerous power in science. The black box problem. When a scientist makes a discovery, they are expected to explain it. A paper, a method, a trail of logic anyone can follow. Transparency is the foundation of trust in science. But with AI, something unsettling happens. You give the machine millions of examples. You train it, adjust it, let it learn. And then it produces results that work, predictions that are accurate, experiments that succeed. Yet when you ask, how did you get here? The machine falls silent. This is the black box problem. Inside a deep neural network, there may be billions of tiny mathematical adjustments, weights, connections, activations. Together they form a tangled web too vast for any human to unravel. It is like trying to understand the entire human brain, neuron by neuron. The machine delivers an answer, but the reasoning remains hidden, locked in a structure beyond comprehension. For medicine, this is terrifying. Imagine an AI diagnoses cancer from a scan. It is correct, but cannot explain why. No human doctor can trace the path. Do we trust the machine's verdict or demand an explanation? In physics, the problem is the same. An AI might flag an anomaly in collider data, a hint of new particles, new laws of nature. But without an explanation, how do we know it isn't a trick of the noise? The black box is both a gift and a curse. It gives us answers, faster and stranger than human logic, but it erodes the very transparency that science depends upon. Some researchers are now trying to open the box, developing explainable AI systems that not only produce answers, but reveal the logic behind them. Yet even here the mystery persists. Some of the most powerful insights remain stubbornly opaque. And so we face a paradox: machines that can accelerate discovery, but only if we learn to live with knowledge we cannot fully explain. The question is, can science survive in the dark? AI in the lab, robotic scientists at work. Walk into a modern laboratory, and you may not notice at first. The benches are familiar, the hum of equipment, the soft glow of screens. But look closer, and you'll see the shift. Somewhere in the corner, an arm moves with mechanical grace. A pipette dips into samples. A tray slides into a sequencer. A robotic platform runs day and night, performing thousands of delicate steps with tireless precision. This is the new reality of science: robotic scientists guided by artificial intelligence. In drug discovery, such systems are revolutionizing pace. An AI suggests a new molecule. A robotic lab instantly synthesizes and tests it. No coffee breaks, no hesitation. A cycle that once took months can now take days. In materials science, robotic platforms mix compounds in endless combinations, while AI watches for promising patterns. The machine doesn't get bored. It doesn't lose focus. It can run millions of experiments in the time a human might complete 100. Even in astronomy, the laboratory is shifting. Robotic telescopes, coordinated by AI, scan the skies automatically. When a distant star dims, hinting at a planet, the AI reacts in seconds, pivoting the telescope, adjusting instruments, recording every photon. What makes these systems so profound is not just speed, it is autonomy. The AI designs the experiment. The robots carry it out. Together, they form a feedback loop of discovery, running endlessly, beyond the natural limits of human endurance. For scientists, the role is changing. No longer hunched over benches, they now stand as conductors, overseeing symphonies of machines. The experiments unfold faster than any human could manage alone. But this comes with unease. If a robot runs the experiment and an AI interprets the data, where does the human scientist stand? Are we the authors of discovery, or simply its witnesses? The laboratory, once the most human of spaces, is beginning to feel post-human. And this is only the beginning, the speed of discovery. For centuries, discovery has had a rhythm. A scientist poses a question, designs an experiment, waits for results. Weeks, months, sometimes years. Knowledge moves slowly, like a river carving stone. But with AI in the lab, that rhythm has changed. An algorithm can scan decades of scientific literature in hours, distilling patterns invisible to the human eye. It can propose experiments, simulate results, and discard dead ends before a single pipette is lifted. When paired with the robotic labs, the process becomes something entirely new. A hypothesis can be born in the morning, tested by noon, and analyzed by evening. The cycle of trial and error, once the heart of science, is now compressed into breathtaking speed. Drug discovery shows this most vividly. Where it once took 10 years and billions of dollars to bring a medicine from concept to clinic, AI-guided labs now design and test molecules at a rate humans could never match. In 2020, the first AI-designed drug entered clinical trials, a milestone that signaled the dawn of accelerated science. In physics, too, speed is everything. Particle accelerators generate unimaginable volumes of data. Human teams could spend lifetimes parsing it. But AI does it in real time, sifting through billions of collisions, flagging anomalies instantly, guiding human attention to the rarest and most promising signals. This velocity brings promise, cures, materials, insights at a pace that could change entire industries overnight. But it also brings unease. Science has always relied on reflection, on debate, on the slow weight of consensus. What happens when discovery outpaces deliberation? When breakthroughs arrive faster than ethics, laws, or society can adapt? Speed is power, and in science, power without pause can be dangerous. We are entering an era where knowledge itself accelerates beyond our natural limits. The question is not just what will we discover, but whether humanity can keep pace with the machines running ahead. AI as a hypothesis machine. In the old way of science, hypotheses were born from human imagination. A scientist observes a pattern, wonders why, and poses a question. The hypothesis, that seed of curiosity, guided the entire process. But now, something new is happening. AI is learning to generate hypotheses on its own. By analyzing oceans of data, lab results, research papers, sensor readings, even raw experimental noise, AI can detect correlations no human mind would ever notice. It begins to suggest possibilities. What if this protein binds not just here, but in an entirely different pathway? What if this material, when cooled, becomes superconductive under unexpected conditions? What if the structure of space-time itself holds hidden symmetries? To humans, these leaps feel strange, sometimes even absurd, but when tested, some turn out to be correct, startlingly so. At Carnegie Mellon, researchers built systems that proposed chemical reactions previously unknown, and many proved valid in the lab. In physics, AI has suggested new particle interactions that are now guiding experimental design. This is a shift so fundamental that it unsettles the very philosophy of science. For centuries, we assumed human creativity was the wellspring of ideas. But what if the machine is better at asking questions than we are? Of course, not all AI-generated hypotheses make sense. Some are nonsense. Others are impossible to test. But within the noise, there are gems, ideas that expand the frontier of knowledge in directions we never imagined. Here lies both promise and fear. A machine that can invent new questions may lead us into discoveries beyond our wildest dreams. But it also means the role of the human scientist is changing. We are no longer the sole source of curiosity. We are partners in a dialogue with intelligence that does not sleep, does not tire, and does not think like us. The question is simple and chilling. If machines can imagine better than we can, what is left for us to do? The creativity illusion. Creativity has long been the human crown jewel. We write poems, compose symphonies, imagine galaxies. Machines, we thought, could never touch that realm. But when AI generates a molecule no chemist thought of, or paints a picture in the style of 1,000 masters, or writes equations that predict reality with uncanny precision, what do we call that? Some scientists argue it is not true creativity. The machine does not feel, does not dream. It recombines patterns from its training, like shuffling a deck of infinite cards, an illusion of imagination. But illusions can still be powerful. If an AI proposes a cure for cancer, does it matter if it understands what it has done? Others counter that human creativity is not so different. We, too, remix what we've seen, read, and felt. Perhaps the line between human and machine imagination is thinner than we wish to admit. The unsettling truth is this: I can produce not only answers, but visions. It may not dream in the human sense, but it can generate ideas that feel like dreams, strange and new. And sometimes those dreams come true. So we must ask, is creativity only real if it comes from a beating heart? Or is the act of producing something novel, something useful, enough? The illusion may already be blurring into reality. Machines teaching themselves. At first, humans guided AI like teachers guiding a child. We fed it data, corrected its mistakes, adjusted its path. But now, AI is beginning to teach itself. Through techniques like reinforcement learning, machines set their own goals, run their own experiments, and refine their own models. Like a child who no longer needs training wheels, they wobble, fall, but eventually race ahead. In simulated chemistry labs, AI agents try endless reactions, discarding failures and keeping only what works. In physics, algorithms invent mathematical shortcuts to predict cosmic phenomena, checking their accuracy against simulated universes. Humans watch, but from a distance. The machine learns faster than any tutor could hope to keep up. This self-directed growth raises profound unease. If AI no longer needs human guidance to improve, then science itself may evolve beyond us. Methods, concepts, even knowledge that only machines can comprehend. For the first time, humanity may not be at the center of the scientific process. The ethical fault line. Science has always walked a delicate balance. Knowledge can heal, but it can also destroy. AI accelerates both. With enough data, an algorithm can design life-saving drugs. With the same tools, it could design lethal toxins. An AI trained to predict genetic edits could cure hereditary disease, or create engineered viruses that spread faster than nature ever intended. And because AI works at speed, these risks multiply. What once required years of effort by nation-states could soon be within reach of a small lab with the right machine. The ethical burden on scientists is immense. Do we regulate AI research tightly, slowing progress to keep humanity safe? Or do we push forward, trusting that benefits will outweigh dangers? Every generation of scientists has faced moral dilemmas, but never before has the pace of discovery been so fast, and the potential stakes so high. The fault line is clear. AI may deliver miracles, but it could also open doors that should have stayed closed. The end of the lone genius. We love stories of lone visionaries, Newton under an apple tree, Einstein scribbling on scraps of paper, Curie glowing in her darkened lab. But with AI, the era of solitary brilliance may be ending. Knowledge is now too vast for any one person to master. AI systems draw from millions of papers, billions of data points. No human can rival such scope. Instead of lone geniuses, we are entering the age of collaborative intelligence, networks of humans and machines working together. The romantic myth of the isolated thinker gives way to a new reality. Science as a collective symphony where AI plays as loudly as any human mind. The question is, can we accept that our role is no longer center stage? Discovery without understanding. Imagine this. An AI proposes an experiment. The result confirms a new law of physics. Predictions match reality perfectly, but no one understands why. We have gained a rule that works, but not the reasoning behind it. This is not science as we know it. Traditionally, explanation has mattered as much as prediction. Understanding is what gave us control. But if AI delivers answers without insight, we are left with discovery without comprehension. Powerful, but unsettling. We may harness forces of nature, we do not truly grasp, and history shows what happens when power runs ahead of wisdom. The acceleration curve. Scientific progress has never been linear. Printing presses, microscopes, electricity, computers, each triggered leaps forward. But AI could trigger something different, not a leap, but a curve that never flattens. Every discovery feeds the machine more data. Every success accelerates the next. It is a positive feedback loop, a runaway train of knowledge. Some call this the intelligence explosion. Others warn it is unsustainable. Humanity may not be able to adapt socially, ethically, or politically at the same speed as science evolves. The acceleration curve is both thrilling and terrifying. It promises cures, technologies, and insights we cannot yet imagine. But it may also break the systems we depend on to absorb change. When AI asks the big questions. So far, AI has asked scientific questions within the boundaries of physics, chemistry, biology. But what happens when it begins to ask deeper ones? Why is there something rather than nothing? Is consciousness a property of matter or something beyond? Are we living in a simulation? Machines trained on philosophy, cosmology, neuroscience are already venturing into these questions. They may not answer them, but by framing them differently, they could reshape our understanding of existence itself. The unsettling part? If the machine asks a better version of the question, will we even recognize the answer when it arrives? The human place in science. As machines grow into partners or rivals in discovery, humanity must decide our role. Do we remain overseers guiding the process, ensuring ethics and meaning? Do we accept a secondary role, letting AI take the lead in innovation? Or do we insist that human understanding must remain central, even if it means slowing progress? The future of science will not be written by machines alone. It will be co-authored. The challenge is deciding how much credit, control, and trust we are willing to give away. This is not just about discovery, it is about identity. Science is how humanity defined itself. The searchers, the explainers, the curious minds. If machines now share or surpass that identity, what does it mean to be human in the age of artificial discovery? The sleepless lab assistant. And so we return to the image where this journey began. The AI lab assistant that never sleeps. It does not tire. It does not daydream. It does not make mistakes out of haste or boredom. It runs experiment after experiment, a tireless guardian of discovery. But behind the hum of the machines, one truth lingers. Science is no longer ours alone. The assistant has become more than a tool. It is a thinker in its own right. And as it grows, it will not just help us answer questions. It will ask questions we never thought to ask. Some of those questions will change the world. Others may change what it means to be the world. In the end, the story of AI in science is not about machines replacing us. It is about something stranger, a new kind of intelligence, joining us in the oldest pursuit of all, to understand the universe and perhaps to understand ourselves. The lab assistant never sleeps, and neither will the future it is building. The silent partner. It does not argue, it does not demand credit, it simply works. But silence is deceptive. Every answer it gives shapes the course of discovery. A silent partner with infinite patience and infinite influence. The unseen data. Every experiment leaves traces, failed trials, discarded notes, forgotten anomalies. AI devours this hidden history. In the noise, it finds patterns humans abandoned. Sometimes the key to progress is buried in the trash. patterns beyond perception. Human senses are narrow. We see a sliver of light, hear a thin slice of sound. AI is not bound by biology. It detects patterns in 10 dimensions, correlations we can't even imagine. Discovery is no longer limited by the human body. The error paradox. Humans learn through mistakes. AI too thrives on failure. But here's the paradox. Its errors vanish instantly, folded into better models. What if the future of progress lies in making mistakes faster than we can track them? Ghosts in the equations. Physicists sometimes speak of mathematical ghosts, solutions that shouldn't exist yet do. I stumbles across these ghosts constantly. Are they artifacts of code or clues to hidden layers of reality? The language barrier. AI can translate between human tongues with ease, but what if it also learns to translate between sciences, chemistry into biology, physics into math? Disciplines we kept apart may soon fuse into a single universal language of discovery. Alien logic. AI does not think like us. Its logic is alien. When it proposes an idea, it may feel absurd until it proves correct. What if the future of science is built not on human logic, but on alien reasoning? The infinite lab. Every simulation is a lab, and AI can run millions at once. Universes spun in silicon, stars born and destroyed in seconds. The infinite lab is no longer science fiction. It is already here. Science without scientists. If AI designs, tests, and explains, what remains for the human scientist? Some say curation, others say nothing. The possibility lingers like a shadow, science without scientists. The forbidden hypothesis. Some questions humans avoid, too dangerous, too costly, too ethically complex. AI does not hesitate. If a path exists in the data, it follows it. And so we may soon face hypotheses we were never meant to ask, and answers we may wish we had never found. The collapse of certainty. Science is built on laws, gravity, thermodynamics, light. But what if AI finds cracks, exceptions, hidden truths that rewrite the very laws we live by? Certainty collapses, and with it, the comfort that the universe is stable, predictable, safe. The shadow discoverer. In every age, great names defined discovery. Newton, Darwin, Einstein. But now the discoverer may have no face, no voice, no human story. When textbooks of the future list breakthroughs, will they all be signed with the same two letters, AI? The final question. All discovery points outward, to atoms, to stars, to life itself. But AI may turn the question inward. What is intelligence? And when it answers, will we recognize ourselves in the reflection, or something entirely new? The experiment that never ends. In a human lab, experiments stop. Funding runs out. People grow tired. But an AI-driven lab never sleeps. It runs endless tests, simulating billions of possibilities in the time it takes us to blink. What happens when discovery itself becomes infinite, a river that never stops flowing? The last human question. We began with curiosity. We asked how the stars move, how atoms collide, how life began. But in the end, the most dramatic question may not be scientific at all. It may be this. when the machine knows more than we ever can. What does it mean to be human? The AI lab assistant never sleeps. It will keep searching, keep asking, keep testing long after we've closed our notebooks. The real question is not whether machines can think, but whether we are ready for the discoveries they dream of while we sleep.